Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Kansas City Profiles presented by Easton Roofing. When your name and your business is called Paddy Whack, then you know you have an interesting story to tell. And we certainly do have one today with Paddy Cocherl III, the youngest of 5 children of Pat and Kathy Cocherl, and eventually a person who you know around Kansas City, or you will get to know around Kansas City, or you'll get to know through this podcast as a person who does trick shots at golf tournaments, and he's really talented at what he does. I saw his particular act at a tournament I played in about 6 weeks ago. Maybe it was a little bit longer than that. And that is how we met, and that is how I got the idea that this would be a good story. But it's a good story on multiple levels because while he's an accomplished trick shot artist who is building his business step by step, very successfully, once a long drive competitor as well at the highest level. But he also has a story of overcoming addiction, and he has been a sober person since September of 2009, and as he put it in his bio, continues to live his life one day at a time. He'll tell the story of how he got involved in an addictive lifestyle and continues to sort of take that channel into productive ways with his Paddy Whack golf entertainment business, which obviously is growing and growing and growing. It's an interesting story. It's a Kansas City story, somebody who's lived his entire life in the Kansas City area, except for the stretch where he went to California to get sober, and now is living a productive life with his wife, Annie, and his one son, PJ, Patrick IV, and one more son due in February of 2021. Get involved with Paddy Whack and his great story coming up next, right here on Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing. We're here with Joe Spiker, the CEO and president of Easton Roofing. And Joe, you had a great year in 2019, a record year. 2020 comes, things are moving smoothly along, and then the coronavirus comes. But your company seemed to be very ready, very proactive, and very ready to serve your customers well.
Yeah, we adopted social distancing very early before the cities even put out the notices, and we started working from home. We are largely cloud-based as a company, so that transition was easy. Our technicians are wearing masks and gloves, and salespeople are not meeting with homeowners. We're doing everything digitally and doing everything we can to do our part to get over this as quickly as possible.
So for any needs that people have right now, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, you can always call us, 913-257-5426, but the best way is to go to eastonroofing.com. Put your information in and we'll give you a call.
Easton Roofing. Integrity matters. It's time now to get some great assistance on healthcare with Chad Beisel from NoNonsenseHealthcareNinja.com. And Chad, even your business's name would indicate that you have a real aggressive way and an important way to go after some health insurance for your clients.
What I've found out in the industry is just a lot of people are really confused. They don't know what plans are good, what their plans offer, how they cover. And so I've just taken the approach of being really educated on what options are available to clients and showing them all the options that are available and making sure they understand them so they can pick and choose what options are good for them.
And one thing that's really important, of course, is access to doctors and hospitals.
Absolutely. That's becoming a big issue for a lot of people. Some of the plans out there are going to restrict those clients to where they can and cannot go. So if you live just outside the Kansas City metro, some of the counties outside, you may not be able to go to some of the hospitals up here in the Kansas City area. So making sure that you have a plan that's got doctors and hospitals and places you want to go is really, really important today.
Learn more by visiting NoNonsenseHealthcareNinja.com and let Chad help you. Cinematic Visions has been an affordable solution for professional media production in Kansas City since 2003, offering award-winning video production and creation, as well as a wide array of digital and social media management services. From planning, scripting, filming, editing, and post-production, to delivering your product to a watching world, Cinematic Visions will provide professional and affordable services for you and your business with the necessary return on investment to make it all worthwhile. Cinematic Vision's goal is to unlock the power of storytelling through video and a strong online presence for your company. Beyond the numbers, they want to inspire and evoke your clients to feel and act. Let my friends at Cinematic Visions embed your brand where it belongs, in your customers' minds. You can find them online at cinematicvisions.com or with a quick phone call at 816-600-6300. It's time to visit once again with Dr. Brad Woodle of Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. And Dr. Brad, your group has reached a significant milestone in terms of receiving a prestigious award.
We have been honored for the 10th year in a row to receive the 5-Star Service Award by Integrity Doctors. We're just thrilled about that. And what that means is that we are guaranteed to give you excellent service. We're going to treat you like family, and we're going to make sure we do a very thorough evaluation and a care plan to get you well. We have 5 locations, and we're soon opening our 6th. So we are in Olathe, Overland Park, Prairie Village, Belton, Lee Summit, and soon to be Blue Springs.
And I know firsthand about those great services. I come to the location in Overland Park. And for more information and your chance for a healthier way of life, make sure to visit asfca.com/Danny today.
If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you.
Patrick, not many people call you Patrick, but you accept ironically, your wife. So we have something in common here is the fact that my name is Danny. I have always used Danny as my name. It's my preferred name by far, and I use it professionally. And now that I'm an older man, it maybe seems a little silly, but I don't like the name Dan. So anyway, but my entire immediate family back in Massachusetts all calls me Dan now, and I don't understand it. I don't know why, but anyway, so you're always known as Paddy to everyone. And how early in your life did you become Paddy?
I want to say it was about 6 years old is when my dad started calling me Paddy Boy. We're very Irish. I don't know how much Irish we actually are. I've never done like a 23andMe, but I've been brought up my whole life being told that I'm from a very strong Irish line. So my dad started calling me Paddy Boy because he's Pat Jr., and then it just kind of stuck. I mean, all my friends playing baseball with him, they just started calling me Paddy Boy, and it's just literally stuck ever since then.
Yeah, well, actually, that's sort of a similar tale to me as well. Now, the opposite of me, you were the youngest of 5 children. How much older were your other siblings to you?
So it's 16 years between me and the oldest, and then 15. And then 8 and 6.
So they're spread out pretty good there, but you were the youngest by a pretty good margin. And what was that like?
You know what? I'm super lucky. I'm very close to all my siblings. I have like different types of relationships with them because of the age disparity. I mean, my oldest sister wasn't really in the house growing up. She had already kind of moved out on her own. But I always spent a ton of time with her, so they were always very supportive. They came to all of my Little League football games, baseball games. They came to all my high school stuff, so I'm still very close to all of them. In fact, we all still live here. We're all about, say, the furthest distance between any of us is about 5 miles.
Wow. You mentioned the youth sports. When did you get involved with that? And did you play all sports like most kids did when they're little anyway, if they're going to play sports?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I grew up playing baseball. We're a big baseball family. My dad helped start the Blue Valley Rec Commission back in the early 80s. So, I mean, he coached out at Blue Valley Rec for 35 years. He coached all 3 of us boys. So baseball was right off the gate. I got very lucky. Heritage Park football kind of was blowing up when I was in 1st grade. So I got hooked up with the football team with a really great coach out there. I played basketball. I only did soccer for 1 year. I just wasn't any good at it. I was good at every other sport, but never soccer.
What was your favorite sport and what was your best sport?
Baseball and baseball. I was good and I loved it. I understood the game. My dad understood the game very well. He imparted that knowledge on us. And then, of course, being able to grow up and watch, when I was a little kid, my oldest brother was already in high school. And then watching my middle brother play, Little League, I got bathed in baseball. So I understood the game and I loved it. Still love it, still miss it.
What position did you play?
I grew up playing short, and then I got real sick in about third grade. I got pneumonia for the first time. Got put on prednisone steroids and kind of gained a lot of weight. And once I kind of realized I could no longer show the Jeter range at short, even though he's overrated sabermetrically as a defensive shortstop. I moved to the corners in high school. I started playing first and third. During the regular season, I predominantly played first base, and then once we got into the summer ball, they moved me over to third to kind of try out the kids that were behind me to get them ready for when I graduated.
It sounds like you're at the golf course now. Is that correct?
I am out practicing.
I thought I heard the ball being struck. Well, how appropriate that you were actually practicing. Well, what we're hearing here is baseball, basketball, football, a little bit of soccer. What I'm not hearing is golf. So when did you come to the game of golf?
So I grew up playing golf. My parents belonged to what was formerly called Leawood South, over off state line on the Kansas side. So I grew up playing in the junior program, but it was always just a hobby and just, I think, something to keep us 5 kids busy in the summer so my mom wasn't pulling her hair out with 5 kids. So I grew up playing golf, and it was just always a hobby. And then later in life is when it kind of became a profession. And I'm still not any good at golf. I just have a very particular set of skills that translates well to what I do.
I'll get into that a little bit later on. So where did your baseball career take you? You obviously were so enthusiastic about it. You say you missed it. Everybody has a story about how the trail comes to an end. What was yours?
So I went to a very small college in Sioux City, Iowa called Briarcliff University. Mm-hmm. In fact, my junior varsity high school coach is the one that made that introduction. So I got a scholarship to go up there. So I went up there for a year. And I like to tell people I didn't really go to college. I lived at college because I didn't attend class, so I was never eligible.
Wow.
And that's kind of we'll touch on it later. I was a pretty heavy drug addict and alcoholic, and that is kind of when it really ramped up and escalated.
Right.
And then, so after a year there, I transferred back home to Avila. I actually gave my first semester a good go. I was finally eligible. I beat out a kid that they recruited and brought in from a junior college. And I actually started about the first 6 games, and then they did a grade checkup, and I started flunking everything again. So I became ineligible. And just like with most addicts and alcoholics, when you're active in it, it's just the cycle of the same thing over and over again. So that is when my career officially ended as a player. And then I coached summer high school baseball for about 8 years through Blue Valley High School.
Well, we might as well get into that now because in all your biographical information and actually during your presentation, which I saw a couple of months ago at a golf tournament, you do mention that you have been sober for 11 years now. But obviously it took some time for you to decide to make that step. You've lived in Kansas City forever, the entire time except when you went to California to get sober. What was the path that led you to finally seek treatment?
So my parents, one day, after I dropped out of school, I figured the logical step for me to enter the workforce as an active alcoholic was to become a bartender. So I worked at an old wine bistro up at Town Center, or I guess Park Place, called Trezo Vino for a few years. And my story as a active alcoholic continued to progress at a rapid pace, and I started getting pulled over, and I started getting citations for DUIs, and I got pulled over 8 times.
Wow.
In a 4-month span, 4 times by the same cop, and I got 2 DUIs in that 4-month span. The second one, I was so inebriated they actually mailed it to my residence, my parents, because I was living with them. And they basically just sat me down. They're like, look, you're going to go get sober, whether you like it or not. And we're going to send you to this place called Pacific Hills. It's in San Clemente. It comes very highly recommended through a bunch of people that they had reached out to. And they said, look, you can either go now or we can have an intervention. And right around then is when that TV show got real popular. And I just didn't feel like having my whole family tell me how disappointed they were in me, but that they still loved me. So I decided, you know what? I'll go to California and hang out on a beach, and maybe I'll learn how to drink more responsibly. So I headed out there, and excuse me, about 5 days into the program out there, we went to meetings every day. We went to an AA or an NA meeting every day. And one night we went to a meeting. This British woman in her 60s got up and shared her story. And I kid you not, it was my story, except she waited 20 years to get sober. So she waited until she was in her 40s to get sober. And that night I went back to my room at the treatment center, and I basically just had a moment to myself. And that next morning I woke up, went down to my counselor, and I said, Ty, what do I got to do to stay sober? And he gave me the basic outline that almost every addict and alcoholic in recovery gets, which is you need to get a sponsor, you need to go to 90 meetings in 90 days, and you need to start working the steps. Because the only thing that's going to get you sober is action. And I haven't looked back. And it's been the single best decision I've ever made in my life.
What's interesting is that your plan was not to go there to completely stop drinking. It was to be able to control your drinking, but you quickly actually moved to another step, which, that maybe that lady's inspiration was there. That is a really fortuitous turn of events.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite sayings I ever heard when I came back to Kansas City and found my home group is a lady in there who had been in the program for a while said, my mind is not always the smartest thing on my body. Sometimes smart feet get smart results. So she's like, I continue to follow my feet into these rooms. And so I've always equated that back to when I got sober, is I followed my feet to California. And because of the action of going there and then listening and understanding what other people go through, it kind of worked its magic in a reverse way on me. And now 11 years later, I'm still sober.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Most of us have experienced auto accidents, and it's no fun. And even less fun is trying to work on the insurance aspects afterwards and getting full value after an auto accident. I'm here with David Cowan from WreckExpert.com. And David, you have an unusual and important niche for people after an auto accident.
We have a passion to teach car wreck clients what they deserve. Getting your car repaired only fixes the damage and the paint. Getting paid for your car's loss in value is called diminished value. Chances are you've never heard of this before because most people aren't looking out for you. We help people collect thousands to tens of thousands of dollars for their car's loss in value after the wreck.
And if somebody wants to come to you for that, what's the original assessment cost them?
We offer a free review of any insurance claim to see how we can help.
You can't beat that. Great expertise and assistance in getting full value after an auto accident. From David Cowan, visit WreckExpert.com and learn more.
Hi, everybody. This is Matt Llewellyn from 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. I just want to thank everybody for supporting local restaurants during this time of uncertainty. 23rd Street Brewery is now open until this pandemic is over. And right now, more than anything, local restaurants need your help and support. Come on out and see us. 23rd Street Brewery is open now from 11:30 till 9 o'clock for dine-in and carry-out. Whatever we can do to help you out, maybe with your catering needs, too. I appreciate all the support, and thank you for continuing to shop local.
I'm here with Tim Emerson, the owner of Emerson & Company. And Tim, give us an idea of the range of services that you provide from Emerson & Company.
At Emerson & Company, we do credit card processing, payroll services. We do bookkeeping, merchant accounts like point-of-sale systems.
What would you say differentiates you from other companies in the field, and what makes you special?
I think what makes us unique is that we're a small local business making regional decisions on companies. We create a profile for the business and then put it out to our different vendors in a very competitive environment and tailor those needs to the specific business, which usually ends up in a great fit or great result for the company.
And, of course, the idea is to save money, right?
Save money, and actually sometimes I'm surprised where actually a solution that may cost a little bit more ultimately does save money, but we're not conditioned to think like that sometimes.
Emerson & Company. Check them out at emerson-co.com or call them at 816-360-9092. Firsthand, I have enjoyed the benefits of the CBD products from Canaway. My back feels better and better these days, as a major part of my routine are the pain-relieving salve and the pure gold oil. And recently, I had the pleasure of a treatment session using the Canaway CBD in conjunction with the Microlight 830 cold laser. The non-invasive treatment session worked wonders, and I could barely tell I was even being touched. TML 830 is the first 3B cold laser to get FDA approval, and in addition, the combination treatment with CBD is patent pending. The new Smart Laser is the only hands-free cold laser in the world and is used by athletic trainers, chiropractors, MDs, physical therapists, and veterinarians everywhere. You can learn more about all the great benefits from the complete line of Canaway CBD products by contacting my friend Sherry McCants at 515-208-6312. That's 515-208-6312 to get outstanding information about Canaway. If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at Danny@DannyKlinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Our guest is Patrick Cocherl III, better known as Paddy Whack, and you probably, if you're any kind of golfer, have played in any kind of tournament, have crossed paths with him around the Kansas City area, and if not, you probably will soon. That particular situation, and as you can hear, every now and then he is practicing as we speak, so there's real dedication to your craft. I got to get this question out of the way because you referenced it earlier. You know, there are some trick shot artists, or many trick shot artists, who are fine golfers, and you've said yourself that you're not a really fine golfer. Tell me how not fine you are, because a lot of times people say I'm not a very good golfer, and they're like a 7 handicap or something. How would you describe?
I'm a 6, but with my particular skill set, virtually everybody that I meet assumes I'm a scratch,
right,
or like a +2. So I do try and let people know, because of the pandemic this year, I've actually gotten out and been able to play a lot of golf, which is very rare for me. And so I've been able to keep my stats on this app called The Grint.
Right.
And I average 8 penalty shots a round.
Wow. And you're a 6?
Yes. I have a much better short game than people assume, because I also competed on the World Long Drive Tour for a few years. So everybody just assumes I just hit it far, and that's the extent of my game. But I actually, from about 80 yards and in, I'm not terrible. I should be better than I am.
Now, how much does it take away from your game, the fact that you're practicing things that have nothing to do with creating a good score?
So I would say that it's weird. The trick shots come very natural to me. Very little thought goes into me reacting to hit a golf ball out of midair. I just trust my eyes and my hands are going to get it there. But I have noticed that, like, after an event like you and I met,
right,
trick shots for 6 straight hours and then trying to play around a golf the next day is virtually impossible.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine that. Okay.
I do, after one of those days, I do try to, go to the range and then just hit wedges for 30 minutes just to get tempo back.
Right. Well, you said you obviously had a very athletic background, and it sounds like even though your profession is to be a trick shot artist, that you're still dedicated to becoming better as a golfer, and clearly that's the case because you're practicing as we speak. But let's backtrack a little bit, and you get sober and all that. Was this a period in your life where you would end up meeting your wife, or did that come later?
That came later. There's kind of a funny story about that. So typical with a lot of addicts, when you get sober at first, you kind of shift your addiction to other things. And before I actually got sober, I had started smoking cigarettes. So I actually became like a pretty heavy smoker after I got sober. And my best friend had just met a girl like right before I got sober, and they were still together a few years after I got sober. And I noticed she had this super hot blonde friend on her Facebook. And I was like, hey, set me up with her. And she's like, you're not ready yet. And so I kept bugging her for like 2 years. And when I finally quit smoking is when she finally set me up with her. And that's when I met Annie back in 2014.
That's a really interesting story. I know that a lot of times people who get sober who are already smokers are told not to try to quit both. You did subsequently, sort of one after the other. Would you describe the differences or similarities to doing that?
I tell everybody, I've quit drugs, I've quit drinking, and I've quit smoking. Quitting nicotine is 10 times, if not 20 times harder than quitting drinking and drugging.
Wow.
And I think a big reason is with drinking and drugs, there is like, I don't know how to say it. There's like hard evidence that you're doing so much harm to those around you.
Right.
Smoking for such a long time was painted as this innocuous thing that just everybody did. And I grew up, my dad has smoked my entire life. And I don't know if there was any part of that growing up, seeing him smoke and looking up to him so much, I thought, oh, that's a cool thing. But I didn't start smoking until I started working in the service industry. Excuse me. But yeah, quitting smoking was way harder. It took me 13 solid attempts to finally quit. And I tried everything but hypnotism. I tried patches, gum, lozenges, cold turkey. And I had to do cold turkey 3 times before it actually finally worked.
Wow, that is amazing. Do you have any thought as to why you got into drugs and alcohol? A lot of times people say, "Oh, it's hard times, whatever," and that's to me, it's often just false. I think a lot of times people do things because they're. I think a lot of times people do things that are considered, that eventually become addictive because they were fun at first. What would be your take on that?
I got drunk my first time when I was 13. My parents were, I can't remember if they were out of town or like just at an event where they were going to be gone. I think they were out of town. And my sister was home taking care of me, and she went up to bed, and I stayed up and I watched, I don't know, I think Rocky. And just like at one point I was like, you know what? I'm going to have a beer. So I took out a Bud Heavy and I took a sip, and I was like, that's the grossest thing I've ever drank in my life. But I had always heard about how people mixed drinks. So I mixed a Bud Heavy with Coca-Cola, and I drank the whole thing because I wanted to drink it. And so I was sitting down most of the time drinking it. And when I stood up, it hit. And that feeling was just amazing. It made me feel very different, and it just made me feel really good. And then I was hooked. Wow. And I am a big believer in that there is an addiction gene.
Right.
There is enough science out there to show that addicts, their brains work at a different level and a different frequency than that of somebody that is not an addict. And I really get addicted to different things. It's just the things I get addicted to now are not as harmful as they were when I was younger. You know, I'm here doing an interview with you and I'm out practicing. I'm addicted to my craft now.
Right.
You know, I maneuver my addictions, and I just try to become conscientious of an addiction if it's harmful to myself or those around me. And then I do everything I can in my power to subside that addiction or move off of whatever it is that I'm addicted to.
Well, tell me how you got involved in making this trick shot thing a profession. And it not only is a profession for you, it's a vehicle for doing good.
Yeah. So my parents, when I was in high school, they started going down to Florida, and they got a place down there. And so my dad has a membership out here in Kansas City at Lionsgate and at Leawood. And I'm one of three boys. So my dad plays in a member guest tournament at each of those courses. And one of the courses is in Florida, and I get to go to that one because I've been going to Florida the most out of any of the kids, and I know most of the people down there. So I'm down there one year, and they do after one of the rounds, they do a long drive clinic with a gentleman by the name of Mike Ziegler. And so Ziggy gets up there, and he's just pounding the ball. And I've always been able to hit the ball far. That was kind of all I ever worried about when I played golf growing up, is how far can I hit my pitching wedge? Or, hey, Dad, I just outdrove you with my 5-iron, and you had to hit driver. It didn't matter that my dad's 35 years older than me. I just had to rub it in his face that I outdrove him with a 5-iron. But he would, beat me by 15 strokes on the scorecard. So Ziggy does his show, and I'm enamored. And a couple of the guys out there at the course say, hey, you need to go talk or watch this kid, Cocherl, hit some balls. He can hit it a mile. And so Ziggy comes out the next morning while everybody's warming up and watches me hit a few tee shots on the range, walks over and says, hey, man, try my driver. So he gives me his driver, which is 48 inches long, a 5-degree head, and a double X stiff shaft. And I hit the first one, it goes dead right. And he says, try again. So I make an adjustment, and it goes less right. He says, okay, try one more time. And on the third one, I nutted it. He said, yep, you've got the speed. And so that was 8 years ago is when he and I met. And he flew out later that summer to Kansas City, practiced with me for 5 days, took me under his wing, got me into the world of long drive. So I didn't compete in 2012. And then in 2013, I decided to give long drive a run. And I made it through a local qualifier. And I qualified for the World Long Drive Championship tournament. And he said, look, you belong. You could do this. He said, you can make a career out of this. You just need to do more than hit the ball far. He's like, you either need to start getting really good at golf and go to events and do clinics, or he's like, you can do some trick shots. And right around then is when the Bryan brothers started getting really popular. And I was, seeing videos of them, bouncing it off stuff and hitting the ball out of the air. And I was like, I bet I can do that. So I started just juggling the ball in my wedge and popping it up and hitting it. And then I just started throwing the ball up and hitting it with my driver or an iron or my putter. And it just kind of took off from there. And Ziggy and I are still two of the best friends you could find on the face of the earth. We help run a couple of events together that benefit our veterans and their families. And then through all this, I've met other people that give me opportunities to host events or go to their events and raise money. So I'm just very lucky that I've got this skill set that not only is really fun to do, and it's really crazy that people pay me to do it, but that I get to hopefully make an impact on charities that help people not only just locally, but nationally.
absolutely the case. Tell me a little bit about how the business developed and how it became a success, and where you go and how many of these things you do. This year, obviously, I imagine was completely different, but maybe talk a little bit about that too.
So I don't know what, like my first event, I guess, was for a charity that my family helps out with called the Abnormal Society. They hosted a tournament for, I think this year was their 29th year. And we used to do it out at Club of the Country, out in Lewisburg or Metcalf Ridge. Most people may know it by. And so they let me do my first exhibition. So after the tournament, I did about 8 trick shots that I had in my repertoire at that time. And through that is when some word of mouth started happening, where people were there. They're like, hey, will you come do a member guest tournament? I was like, yeah, I'll go do that. And then things kind of grew very slowly over the first 2 years. I only did like 10 events a year. And then the now KC Golf Classic was at Lionsgate, which is my home course and where I practiced out of. And the head pro at the time, JD, was talking to the tournament organizers saying, hey, we've got this kid, Paddy Whack, who can hit the ball a mile, and he does trick shot shows. So I met with the tournament director, Kelly Eddy, and she was like, we do a junior clinic. Can you do like a kid-friendly clinic? I was like, oh, yeah, that'd be great. So I did the kid-friendly clinic, and to this date, I think the first show I did for them is one of the 5 best shows I've ever done, where like every shot was going off without a hitch. I was doing everything like within the first attempt or two, and my interaction with the crowd was really popping. I was really bantering well back and forth with all the kids and the parents, and it was just a good time. And at that same show was a fellow long driver named Bobby Bradley. And Bobby at the time owned this company called Charity Golf International. And his company had about 8 hitters at the time. And they would go to charity events, raise money for the events, and offer participants at those events a chance to win a trip to Pebble Beach. So Bobby watched me do my show. And he came up to me after and said, hey, come out and watch what I do tomorrow. You're really engaging with the crowd. I just want you to see what I do, and maybe I'll give you a job. So I watched what Bobby did, and after about 5 groups, I was like, hey, I think I can do that. He said, okay, try the next group. So I regurgitated his speech that he'd been given, and I did the thing, raised some money. He said, sweet, you want a job? I was like, for sure, man. So that was, so 2014 probably is when that started. And I've been working with Charity Golf International ever since. And I think for the first 4 years of me doing charity golf tournaments, they were 80% of the bookings I had. And then in the last 2 years, I've really focused on growing locally myself, plus my partner Ziggy and I have started to expand what we do. So I'm not doing as much for Charity Golf International now, but I would say in a non-pandemic year, I do about 45 to 55 events. Mm-hmm. Ideally, someday I would like to get up to about 60 events. If I can do about 60 events a year, that should generate enough income for my family to live, and hopefully get my wife to retire from her job and she can stay at home, which is what she wants to do. And, I do a little bit of social media, but I don't devote as much time to it as I probably should. I really like to focus my downtime with my wife and my kid and spending time with my family. So that's definitely my biggest area of lacking, is I lack the drive to really make my social media explode.
Well, I hope that this certainly will give you a little bit of boost in that regard, and people will be able to view it on social media as well. Patrick Cocherl III is our guest today, and he's known as Paddy Whack, and his business is growing and growing and growing. How important is the charity aspect of it to you? I can tell it is because I saw your presentation, but it must be a really gratifying combination of trying to grow a business but still helping people out.
It really is. Like, I'm just so lucky. Like, I was very much raised in a house of giving back. My parents have always preached, give back. If you can't give of your treasures, give of your time. If you can't give of your time, give of your talent. So I've really been raised to give back. So being able to find a career path that allows me to make money, but also make a significant impact on those around me has been super great. And it's just super rewarding to like go out, hit these weird, goofy trick shots, but at the end of the day, go back to the charity and say, hey, I raised you guys an extra couple $1,000s, or get hired on to an event to help run from start to finish, like I do up in Ohio every year. And we're making big differences for military charities. I mean, we just this year raised about $90,000 to disperse between 5 military charities over a course of 3 days. And it's just really cool. It's really important to me to be able to give back because I'm very lucky. I've been very blessed. I was raised in what my family likes to jokingly call Happy Valley. I mean, we live in an unbelievable spot. I'm very lucky to have the parents and the upbringing I did. My dad was very successful over his career, and I never wanted for anything as a kid. Like my bio said, I got to go to every freaking game of the 2014 World Series, including in San Francisco. So I just feel it's very important for me to whatever I do to be able to give some back. So it's just, I don't know how else to say it other than I'm very grateful that I get to do that, and I'm very blessed.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like
Easton Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Kling Scale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Easton Roofing, where integrity matters.
We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Kling Scale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.